What's up, everybody? Alex here. So I hope you guys all enjoyed round one. So here I'm just going to go straight into round two of the Burning Shadows League Cup at Chase Games in Cannock. Round two shows us Max Finch playing Sylveon Garbodor versus Rhys Williams playing Xerneas Break. Feel free to leave any comments or likes. Should I miss anything? Hope you guys all enjoy. Thanks. Alright guys, so this is round two of the League Cup. Apologies for the camera angle. It may seem that I reckon they've probably just knocked it a little bit, so we've got a bit of an angle, but it's still showing pretty much the whole playing field. So just to confirm again, on the left we have Max Finch playing Sylveon Garbodor. Rhys has just shown a mulligan there. It looks like Rhys is going first with that 5 dice on his side. Slightly, but I think it actually is going first. Rhys is playing Xerneas Break, a deck which a lot of Europeans sort of have seen recently. It's gained a lot of traction within the UK, with Tamal Cameron and Luke Kirkham both playing it in Liverpool regionals in July, both finishing in top 32, and more recently Tamal Cameron finishing top 8 in Bremen regionals with the Xerneas Break deck as well. So very familiar. Very much a setup deck in the sort of slower format. It does sort of bode really well where it sets up, only uses one prize attackers, and then really dishes out a lot of one-hit KOs. We've got Max Finch playing a more unconventional Sylveon Garbodor deck. I believe from just having quick chats with him, he did base it off sort of last season's Mark Lutz list, where it was quite disruptive. But, you know, with Magical Rip and drawing free cards, any free cards from his deck with just one fairy energy, he's able to do put a lot of pressure on his opponents. We do see that Rhys finally does have a Pokemon starting a Lele to Max's Eevee. And opens with a Brigitte, which is ideal in this sort of situation. So start going through his list, identifying what's been prized. So it looks like he's actually identifying all the Pokemon, taking his notes. This is very much a Rhys Williams kind of thing. But it's a good way of keeping track of actually what's gone on, especially with prizes, which a lot of the time does become quite important. So I'm assuming he's probably counting the Pokemon, the energy line, which just so he can make sure he knows what he's doing with Geomancying. So he does take 2 Xerneas and an Oranguru. So Oranguru allowing him to continuously draw 3 cards using the Destruct ability, or up to 3 cards. But at the moment he's still got plenty of cards in his hand. So he plays his Max Elixir, hits it, plays a lot of energy this deck. I believe the count is 12 and 3 from when I've also played the deck as well. So hits the first energy, attaches Tapu Lele, Fairy Gardens and retreats. So pretty solid first turn. That's all that Rhys needs to do, and I believe he passes go. He may have chosen to actually held on to the Fairy Gun, as it were, but I guess with Max already starting the Eevee, it's not too much of an issue since he's already going to be able to attach the energy to the Eevee and evolve it. So Max Finch plays down Tapu Lele for the Wonder Tag ability, grabs a Pokemon Fan Club, and looks like he's just going to grab another Eevee and the Oricorio, which allows him to grab 2 energies from his deck. He also benches a Trubbish. So here you go. So it's very likely he's just going to grab 2 Fairy Energies. He does also play a Espeon GX. So another sort of attacker to sort of put a pressure on the opponent. That's probably why we see the Psychic Energy in his deck actually. So he does go for the 2 Fairy. Goes for the Energy Evolution. So that he can begin to evolve and go into Sylveon. Potentially use Magical Ribbon, grabbing things like DCE, which he doesn't currently have in hand. He does have a Parallel, which is very interesting. He plays it early, which is an interesting move from Max's part, because being able to Parallel and Plea GX when Xerneas has quite a big board with a lot of energy around, could be quite fruitful. But it's something for him to consider. So he has taken a card which I may have just missed, but we'll be able to see it once he does put it into his hand. It looks like I have no idea, unfortunately. He's taken it very quickly, so I have sped up the game because a lot of these games can take quite some time. I will just quickly go back, so bear me one moment. So I think I can say with some degree of certainty that he does actually take a DCE, which was the first card he took, so I was correct in that, and we can see it there actually, the Trubbish and an N. So I guess he wasn't too pleased with his hand, so he does have the option of the N. He does have the DC as well later. Rhys is very quick turn, he attaches to the Lele and Geomances the other two Pokemon. As you can see here, Max has gone for the Garbotoxin Garbodor, shutting down abilities, so now Rhys is unable to use the Instructability or future Wonder Tags. Attaches DCE, evolves the Sylveon on the bench, and starts to actually put pressure using Sylveon's attack, doing 110 to the actual Xerneas. So this is the only unfortunate thing about Sylveon's attack. The Xerneas actually, because it's able to take an extra hit from the Xerneas, it's actually able to get another 2 energy, which is essentially 40 damage extra onto the board without having to worry too much. Yes, it's likely to go down now, so as you just saw, Rhys again, very quick with his turn, although I've sped this up. Geomancying both to Oranguru and to the Xerneas. So Oranguru's actually got a pretty good attack as well, so 60 base plus 20 for each of your energy on your opponent's active Pokemon. And here we are, Max attaches to the Sylveon on the bench, preparing it to be an additional attacker, and actually takes the first KO, knocking out the Xerneas. So Rhys's hand is pretty good. He does have sort of 7 energy on the field right now. If he attaches DC, it's not good enough. But he does have Xerneas Break in hand, so he does go ahead with the Lele, dealing 100 damage to the Sylveon GX, which means he's just putting his own little bit of pressure on himself. Max retaliates quite quickly. So this game, two players who've played this game quite often now, both fairly good results. Rhys has been a world compared to Max is someone who's performed quite well at recent League Cups. So you have Rhys evolving into the Xerneas Break, draws an N, which is very useful for himself. I'm unsure if he actually does play Field Blower. There has been lists who's played 1. There's some lists who have played 0. I myself would play 1, as I find Lele's ability and sort of Oranguru really important. So he does play the N. What Rhys is really looking for here, though, is actually he does have the Rescue Stretcher, which allows him to bring back the Xerneas from his discard pile and put it onto the bench, which I feel like is what he does need to start getting, and potentially play the Max Elixir as well to try and just get energy back onto like a second attacker, as it were. But as I said, the Xerneas is able to take a hit from a Sylveon. So this is an interesting play. So Rhys has actually gone for the Tapu Lele, knowing that just a second energy drive is actually able to take the KO as an option as well. And again, Sylveon wouldn't be able to knock it out. So interesting here. So he takes 2 prizes. So he takes the lead, and Garbodor is active as he has a Floatstone on it attached. Max's options here. He does have the DC to actually use Sylveon's, I think it's Fairy Wind, one attack again for 110 damage on the actual Tapu Lele. Or he could retaliate with his own Tapu Lele. So he does have a couple of interesting situations here. He's probably not considering the Tapu Lele, because if Rhys gets enough energy on the board, you'll soon start to see the real power of sort of Xerneas Break being able to do a lot of damage. So currently on Rhys's field, he does have 8 energy on board. So 1 more energy, a Choice Band is able to knock out the Tapu Lele. So Max, I think here, he's just attached a Floatstone to the Garbodor. Plays a Sycamore. There you see, he does draw into the Espeon GX. Benches Eevee. Yeah, so I believe he's just going to start applying a bit of pressure. Yeah, and dealing the 110 damage. It would be quite useful if he was able to get a Choice Band. Dealing 140 to the Lele would have been really useful, because then he could potentially divide GX as another potential attack as well, as he does play Psychic Energy. Taking 2 prizes, or 4 prizes as well, or double KO on the Leles. So Rhys here attaches to the bench Tapu Lele and again goes forward with the 100 damage, knowing that going for the 2-hit KO does seem like the most profitable sort of attack right now. Max does play the fan club to get 2 Pokemon into his hand, electing just to choose the 1 Eevee. I mean, it's not too useful at the moment in terms of just having cards in his hand, but he's probably just thinning his deck. So Max does have a decision now, so it takes the KO. Max should be down to 3 prizes now, so Rhys is very likely here to take his next 2 prizes, bringing him down to 2 remaining. He probably should here. Again, Oranguru can actually take a knockout on the actual Sylveon itself, and also potentially take a hit. So he does choose to go for the Lele and bring it active. So it'll be interesting to see what Rhys does here. So he does go for the Lele again. So it's very much, we haven't seen Xerneas Break actually attack yet, which is very interesting from Rhys's behalf. But it does seem just as effective as, well, it's essentially doing the same sort of damage, 2-hit KOing onto a Sylveon. But without having to be a stage 1, be a setup with 2 NG. It's 1 NG attachment to be able to attack. So it is working out really well for Rhys here. So what Max really needs to try and do is actually really take out the Xerneas Break on the bench so it can stop the 1-hit knockouts. I believe if he's able to do so, he puts himself in quite a good position, from what I would see. But he does go for the sort of retaliation attack with his own Tapu Lele, and Rhys, all he needs to do with sort of already 8 energy, 9 energy on the field, does have the Stretcher and the Max Elixir as well. So it does start to thin his deck. He grabs another Ultra Balls, his 2 breaks away. So he's really going for the knockout here. Takes a Xerneas. He looks like he's just going to go for the Max Elixir. Misses it, which is interesting because he just super rodded 3 NG back into the deck. Now his choice is, if he has a supporter, he could play it, because obviously he hasn't played one yet. He does have a Sycamore, so he's likely to just draw into another Elixir, which he does. He's also drawn into 2 of his Fairy Energy, so currently with 7 Fairy Energy on board, 8 in hand, he does hit the Max Elixir, retreats to the Xerneas Break, has 9 energy, takes the first game. So it's just very quickly showing you the power of Xerneas. Xerneas Break decks in general, even being able to use that sort of 2-hit knockouts on opposing sort of decks, as it were, being able to take a hit, Geomancying 2 or 3 times, and he's just been able to sort of run through Max's deck. Sort of thinking about Max's deck, he does have loads of different sort of angles and options that he could try to, I don't know, different avenues to try. But it does seem with the sort of attackers that he currently has at his exposal, probably maybe the wrong word, but the sort of attackers that he has, they're not doing enough damage, as it were, which is the only issue of Max's deck. So Rhys, knowing Garbodor's in Max's deck now, will try not to play as many items if possible, which isn't very hard with Xerneas, as all it needs to do to get going is maybe use 1 or 2 items to start Geomancying its board. Max really needs to find the right angle to sort of put enough pressure on Rhys through attacks and through maybe PleGX. I think PleGX and Parallel seems to be a really good option here, and I'm sure Max has actually elected to go first. He doesn't grab a basic, so it's his turn to actually mulligan. I couldn't see Rhys's starter, but you know, we'll see it shortly. So just whilst they're shuffling up, here we go. So second time lucky. He does see. I do see a Lele. Ooh, he may have just grabbed an extra card. I'm not too sure. He saw it, so that should be fine. Both start Lele. Top deck's Trubbish. So it does have Ultra Ball for another out, and it's not necessary for him to actually evolve into the Sylveon currently. So he could Ultra Ball for Lele, and thus sort of starts setting himself up. But goes through his deck, looking at his sort of prizes he got. It does grab the Lele. I'm assuming he grabbed the N here. Or Fan Club isn't actually an option. I didn't really notice that. So he could grab the Sylveon. There you go. So he does grab the 2 energies. Sort of the Oricorio is a card you don't see too often. So he does put the other Fairy Energy back into his hand and evolves straight away. Floats down to the active. And he does immediately retreat to the Sylveon. So I think his hand wasn't that great. So it's likely he's going to have to Magical Ribbon again. But he does have that DCE. So if he wants to start applying pressure to potentially a Xerneas, which is going to attack turn 1. If Rhys does have a way to retreat the Tapu Lele, which currently is Ultra Ball to Fairy Garden away. So again here, Rhys very sort of well known for checking his prizes, really understanding what's left in his deck, or at least just to make his life easier. I mean, once you're able to do your first ball check, do a really thorough check, essentially you are playing a town map for yourself, except for the luxury of actually picking your prizes. So he does Lele for a budget. No surprises here. If he doesn't grab a Oranguru, it looks like it's likely to be prize. So he does go for the 3rd Xerneas attacker. So Rhys, a couple of options here. I know he has a DC. He does have Fairy Energy in hand as well. Attaches the Fairy Energy to the bench. And I believe he just passes. I mean, with Fairy Garden zoning out, and if he doesn't have a Max Elixir, it's not an issue there. So Max does sort of very early on play as parallel. So I'm assuming it is likely that he does have a second parallel as well. But he does attach to the bench Lele and uses Magical Ribbon. Potentially here, well, I guess he does actually really need to get his setup going. So Rhys does have the 2nd Fairy Garden in the hand, attaches Fairy Energy to Tapu Lele, and there's not much he needs to do. He starts thinning out his deck just by Geomancying, which is another good thing about the deck. Although very slow, and if there's a deck which really sort of capitalizes on slow starts, is this deck, because it is, with a lot of sort of stage 2 decks now, if they don't get a fast enough setup, Xerneas can sort of quickly run through with enough Geomancies on the board, onto the board. You see Max here, he's attached to DC, he has the Garbodor again, set up quite early. So Rhys's deck, the only sort of ability Pokemon are Tapu Lele and the Oranguru. So here, Rhys's hand, again, isn't too great. He does have DC, I think Super Rod. I can't really tell what the other card is. But it looks like he's likely just to Geomancy again. So he's again giving that 2nd energy already to the Tapu Lele. Really going potentially to put pressure on the Sylveon next turn, once it actually takes the KO on this Geomancy Xerneas. So Max here actually evolves a Trash Lance Garbodor, takes the first prize and first KO on that Xerneas that was active. So here we know Rhys is going to potentially continue putting that 100 damage on, just simply by having that 2 energy attachments on that Tapu Lele. He's always going to be 2-hit KOing that Sylveon without even too much trouble. And with Max not really having too much options of actually healing the Sylveon with 2 retreat, potentially he might try and retreat it, put some pressure on himself. Or he does have Guzma. Start putting pressure on the Xerneas as well. However, Fairy Garden is in play, so Rhys would just be able to retreat the Xerneas. So Max goes straight into Tapu Lele. You know, a lot of players might go into the Garbodor, but he knows he's going to be attacking with Tapu Lele anyway, so it's not too much of an issue. There we go, Rhys with the Xerneas Break. He does have 6 energy on board, which is 120 damage. 2 more, putting it onto 160, and Choice Band 190 damage with the Xerneas Break. So he does immediately return KO onto that Tapu Lele, taking 2 prizes, and again going ahead in a game. Oh, Rhys has just headbutted the camera. Very good. So this is where it does cause a bit of an issue. Max does go for the N. DC is attached to the Tapu Lele. So this is potentially where you would play GX. With only 2 bench Pokemon, it's the only 2 targets, but that does remove six energies off the board, 120 damage off the board, which means Sylveon, although would just go down to another Tapu Lele DCE, it just gives it an option where Max might have a chance to sort of stabilize again. However, since that Xerneas Break is active, it is a bit of an issue. So he does remove the Fairy Garden, which is pretty useful. So he does go into the Trashalanche Garbodor, and with only 3 items in the discard of Rhys's, he's only doing 60 damage. So Rhys is sort of thinking, do I even bother playing this item cards? He does miss the Max Elixir, so might not be as useful as he wanted, in all honesty. But here, with Xerneas continuing to take one-hit KOs again, Garbodor isn't very safe. So now there's 4 items in there. But Max doesn't have another Garbodor ready to start attacking again anyway. So Rhys is actually in a really good position. He's got enough energy on the field. Max is unlikely to get enough energy on his own Tapu Lele to Guzma out Rhys's Lele. Although I think he does have it in hand, but it's just not enough right now. So he will continue to end to try and just stabilize his board. Potentially take a KO on that Xerneas Break. But if he is able to take the knockout, which of course he is, either with the Lele or with the Sylveon, as Rhys has yet to actually been able to play one of the most important cards in his deck, which is an EXP share. I think he might still only have 2. There's a second parallel. Again, not really affecting the board state as much, as it's likely to take the prize, so Rhys will have another option to actually bench another Pokemon. But he is doing the right thing. He's knocking out the Xerneas Break. It takes 2 energy or 240 damage off the board. Rhys only has a damaged Xerneas left as a Xerneas Break attacker. Rhys, of course, goes for the Tapu Koko to begin with. And Rhys does have another Tapu Lele, so he might not be able to use the ability, but he does have the DCE in hand already. And Rhys does hit his second elixir. So this is where Max does start to get in all kinds of trouble. There's only 1 prize left for Rhys. Max here, free energy on his own Tapu Lele would deal 100 to Rhys's. So it does Tapu Lele with a DCE. So yeah, deals 80 damage. He knows he has the stronger Tapu Lele on the bench, but if there's a Xerneas Break that Rhys can sort of hit into, attach the choice band to the Xerneas, and if he hits the Xerneas Break, again, he just wins the game. And is that a Xerneas Break? I believe that is a Xerneas Break. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 energy and a choice band, dealing 230 damage. And actually quickly taking this game. In the end, it did seem very much a straightforward victory for Rhys with Xerneas Break. With Sylveon and Max's Tapu Lele just not dealing enough damage, unfortunately. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. 2-0. Xerneas Break taking down Max, who was 1-0 as well, with Sylveon and Garbodor. So as mentioned, Rhys moves on to round 3, 2-0, beating Max's Sylveon Garbodor with Xerneas Break. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Things seem to move a lot quicker. I might have made the speed settings a bit different, but hopefully I caught everything that actually happened in the game. If you guys have any more suggestions or feedback, it'd be really appreciated, because I'm really trying to improve on this. I am doing this as I watch it, so I don't actually know how the games tend to go. I do obviously know the results as I was at the tournament. But I'm doing my best to try and just give you guys a bit of analysis, give you guys a bit of my own thoughts during the game. But like I said, hope you guys enjoy. I'll have round 3 up as soon as possible. Yeah, thank you very much. Peace, guys.